Open your eyes.
There's a movie called The Garden of Words. Some of you may have seen this, others may not, but the movie revolves around the rainy season in Japan, following a young boy and an older woman. The movie was praised because of its art style, choosing to forego the usual black outlines anime are known for, and instead using whites and pinks. The director said he decided to use whites and pinks because they accent the rain better than black. I didn't realize this upon first watching the film, but after I realized it, I watched it a second time, and I fell in love. See, I love the rain. I love how gloomy the sky is, I love how cool the breeze becomes, and how peaceful the earth is after a storm. Everything is fresh, everything is revitalized, and everything is full of life again. See, that's what Breath of the Wild is for me. It's a sense of fresh air, revitalization, and ultimately, life. Today we're going to be doing a review of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a year and a half after its release. We'll be splitting this video into two sections, both in an unbiased opinion and then my personal biased opinions. We'll be starting off with the unbiased opinion first, going over accolades, reviews, core changes to the game, and opinions from social media and the public. I'll leave a timestamp on the video now to where you can skip to if you want to see my personal and biased opinions on this game. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on this review of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a year and a half after its release. March 3rd, 2017, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was released on both the Nintendo Switch and the Wii U. It was actually the launching game for the Nintendo Switch, as well as the final game in the Wii U's lifecycle. Two DLCs were planned in the form of a season pass, both for the summer and holiday season that same year, making it the first game in the franchise to have post-launch DLC. DLC number 1, The Master Trials, was released on June 30th, and DLC number 2, The Champion's Ballad, was released on December 7th, 2017. Upon opening week in Japan, Breath of the Wild sold over 230,000 copies between both Switch and Wii U versions, making it the top-selling game that week. Fast forward to the end of the month, and Breath of the Wild sold a whopping 3.84 million copies worldwide. To put that into perspective, the previous best-selling Zelda game, Twilight Princess, took over 3 months just to hit 1 million copies sold, which is crazy. Fast forward to now, the time this video is being made, and Breath of the Wild across both its Switch and Wii U versions have sold over 9.98 million copies, making it without a doubt the best-selling entry in the series. Reviews upon release were calling Breath of the Wild a resounding masterpiece and, quote, one of the greatest games of all time, with Metacritic giving the Nintendo Switch version a 97 out of 100, almost a flawless game. Eurogamer gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and GameSpot gave it a solid 10 out of 10. However, not all reviews were flawless. Jim Sterling, a well-known gaming journalist, actually gave the game a 7 out of 10 score, criticizing, quotes, difficulty, weapon durability, and general level design. However, he praised the game's variety of content and open-world mechanics. I'm not going to say this game is flawless because yes, the game does have its issues. Issues of massive frame drops during high moments of action, glitches while paragliding, glitches that ultimately break certain shrine quests, and after the release of DLC 2, the game doesn't have enough inventory slots to hold all of the armor, in which Nintendo to this day still has not added a patch allowing us to hold all of the armor in the game. Nintendo, what the fuck are you doing? I can't get my Nintendo sweatshirt! I still love it. Like I said, I'm still holding my opinions till the personal section of this video, but it was very difficult for me to read some of these negative reviews because I freaking love this game! Anyways, when the game came out, there were mainly two views on this game. Either I loved it, or I was disappointed with it. Ask almost anyone what ultimately makes a Zelda game. Most people will say dungeons, boss fights, collecting items, saving a person, and defeating a final boss, most notoriously Princess Zelda and Ganon. And they're not wrong. Almost every Zelda game in the franchise, starting with the original on Nintendo, is focused around dungeons, boss fights, etc. Now, not all of them are. Majora's Mask, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, as well as Phantom Hourglass are all games that actually do not involve Ganon as a final boss fight, which is really cool in my opinion. They tried to change certain aspects that normally make a Zelda game. But these games do keep the linear 8-dungeon aspect the franchise is known for. Most Zelda games have the same 8 dungeon types: grass, fire, water, dark, ice, light, etc. Nintendo said, screw that, we're mixing things up. Kinda. Breath of the Wild, open world, semi-RPG, less dungeons, voice acting, Korok? Poop? What the f— So already, the normal 8-dungeon aspect is cut in half. You now have water, fire, air, and sand, and the linear function of it is actually gone. No longer are you forced to start in the grass dungeon, then trek over to the fire dungeon, and then the water dungeon. Nope. Nintendo realized that half, if not more, of its player base have grown and are now adults, meaning that we don't want to have our hands held anymore. Nintendo heard that. Breath of the Wild is the first game in the franchise to actually let you, the player, choose which dungeon to play, and in no chronological order. They literally said, do whatever the hell you want, and they meant it. You can literally face Ganon within the first hour of gameplay. I'm not even joking. You can get the paraglider, fly off the Great Plateau, make a beeline for Hyrule Castle, and face Ganon in less than an hour. Sure, you'd have no abilities and just a tree branch as a weapon, but the fact the option is there is so astounding and freeing. I think it was a wonderful move on Nintendo's part. You could do the option most people did, myself included, which was do the dungeons counterclockwise: water, fire, air, sand, or if you wanted, sand, air, fire, water, or any combination in between. On a side note, the dungeons in this game actually aren't called dungeons anymore, kinda, I guess. They're in the form of divine beasts, which are legendary man-made creations meant to face Calamity Ganon, which, unfortunately, with the fall of the champions, were possessed by Ganon's blights, the equivalent of a dungeon boss. The divine beasts are Varuda for the water dungeon, Varudanya for the fire dungeon, Va Meadow for the air dungeon, and Va Naboris for the sand dungeon. Now you may ask, if there are less dungeons, doesn't that mean less heart containers to give to Link? Technically, yes. However, to alleviate the lack of main dungeons, Nintendo added something different to fill in the player's options for puzzles and adventures, which were called shrines. Shrines are mini dungeons spread all throughout Hyrule for the character to find. 120 in total, 12 included in the second DLC. A shrine can either be a puzzle, a test of strength, or in the rare occasion, a free shrine. Shrine puzzles were very reminiscent of previous games. They tested the intellectual challenge of trial and error and rewarded with the aha feeling. Tests of strength were interesting because they added an element to the game for testing your combat skills. See, there were 3 levels of strength: minor, moderate, and major, and depending on the level of test you would get would determine the strength of the guardian you had to face. You would fight one-on-one, often testing your ability to dodge, use items, and even how to use your environment to your advantage. There was no time limit either, so you had all the time in the world. These tests were also one of the very few ways to get the shiny Guardian weapons, so it meant there was even more incentive to track these tests down. Reward shrines are basically free shrines, because there usually is no puzzle or test of strength, just a reward. But they were usually led up to by previously doing some sort of challenge. So they're kind of free, not free, I guess. At the end of each shrine is a treasure chest and the shrine's monk, which grants you 1 spirit orb. Spirit orbs are this game's replacement for heart containers. Collect 4 spirit orbs, go to a goddess statue, pray at the statue, and get the option to increase either your maximum hearts or your stamina wheel. Speaking of, the stamina wheel, first introduced in Skyward Sword, makes a return in Breath of the Wild, and turned out to be an amazing aspect for the game. Since Nintendo decided to make the game open world, and most open worlds have massive vertical aspects, for the first time in the entire franchise, Nintendo gave Link the ability to climb. Climbing was a new feature added to the game, which allows Link to reach certain vertical spots he otherwise normally wouldn't. With a lack of a hook shot or a claw shot throughout the entire game, Nintendo wanted another way for Link to get around, and thus, they allow Link to climb literally anything. Here's where the stamina bar comes in. Stamina is used for almost anything Link does: running, climbing, paragliding, etc. After completing shrines, getting spirit orbs, and choosing between hearts or stamina, choosing to increase your stamina gives you another 5th to your wheel, ultimately giving you 2 additional full wheels, making you have a grand total of 3. Having the choice to either spend your spirit orbs on heart containers or stamina vessels, honestly, gives the player a nice and difficult choice for either longevity of health or stamina. I love it. One more huge and new addition to the game was cooking. Link, upon exploring the massive land of Hyrule, can find ingredients almost anywhere. From apples to carrots, acorns to mushrooms, fish to even birds, ingredients are everywhere, and they're the most fundamental aspect of Breath of the Wild.
So, what do you do with it? Do you eat it?
Well, you could, but you'd be missing out on value. See, Breath of the Wild adds something unique to the game in cooking dishes and finding recipes to give you replenishments and bonuses. You could simply take a piece of raw prime meat, cook it, and get a meat skewer that restores 3 hearts, or you could take a piece of raw prime meat, fresh milk, goat butter, and tabantha wheat and make a prime meat stew which fills 6 hearts. Or, how about taking 5 big hearty radishes and cooking them together to get a full heal and up to 25 bonus temporary hearts? Yeah, you can get bonus hearts on top of your already existing hearts, giving you a maximum of 30 hearts, which you can get within the first 20 minutes of gameplay. There are so many options when it comes to cooking. You can cook for either health, stamina, temporary bonuses for hearts or stamina wheels, which do add to your already existing hearts or stamina wheels, elemental resistances such as fire, heat, cold, shock, and also attack and defense boosts. Let's not forget about elixirs. See, killing enemies in this game give you monster parts, and those monster parts are just as important as food. From Moblin Guts to Hinox's toenails, monster parts are in abundance, and instead of selling them for rupees, you can use monster parts as an alternative for ingredients. Every single dish cooked through food can also be made through monster parts. Taking 4 Hardy Lizards and a Bokoblin Horn gives you a full recovery and 16 bonus hearts, which, as stated above, is the same as cooking with big hearty radishes. Now, not all elixirs give you heart recovery though. Some were made for the nick of combat, giving you the benefits of cooking without the heart recovery. For example, so let's say you're at full HP, and you get into a fight on Death Mountain where it's hot like no other. You'll eventually start to take fire damage, so you'll want to take a fire resistance dish. Instead of wasting a dish that gives you fire resistance and heart recovery, just use a fireproof elixir. It gives you fire resistance without wasting the healing benefits. Voila! Lastly, armor sets and their bonuses. See, Link in previous games has been able to change his tunic for corresponding reasons. From Ocarina of Time's Kokiri, Goron, and Zora tunics, all the way to Twilight Princess's magic, totally not magic armor, Link could change his outfits on the fly, and they slightly changed his appearance and gave him special abilities. Breath of the Wild, however, completely changed that aspect and gave armor actual meaning. Not only does armor give you special bonuses similar to cooking, you look totally badass. And sometimes not. Yeah. Link can find different armor sets, usually in pieces of 3, all throughout Hyrule. Headgear, body gear, and leg gear can be found in shrines and others from purchasing through shops. They not only give you bonuses similar to cooking dishes, they give Link an overall defense rating, which contributes to the amount of damage Link will take from attacks. The higher the rating, the less damage he'll take. You can also upgrade armor sets through the Great Fairies. Upgrading gear improves the overall armor rating, as well as, once reaching upgrade level 2, certain armor sets get an armor set bonus, which gives you a bonus stat upon wearing a full set of armor. This ultimately changes the way the game can be played for anyone. It's a wonderful addition, and I hope Nintendo add it in future games. It's something I'd be more than happy to see make a return. All of these implementations to Breath of the Wild change the core aspects of what makes a Zelda game a Zelda game. Instead of, here, do this, then you do this, it allows the player to have a say in which way they do things. So, here, do this however you want. Breath of the Wild ultimately changed the way a Zelda game should be played, and people loved it. Longtime fans who haven't touched a Zelda game since the Nintendo 64 seamlessly jumped back on without hesitation or confusion. They loved all of the additions and add-ons. It felt new, yet natural. Again, no more handholding. Although, people were disappointed with the changes also. People argued that Nintendo changed too much in this game, and that Breath of the Wild doesn't even feel like a Zelda game. The lack of multiple dungeons meant people rushed through them all without exploring the rest of the world, ultimately leading to excruciatingly low playtimes. I seriously know a person who actually beat the main story of the game, from the Great Plateau all the way to Calamity Ganon, in seriously less than a week. I assume they finished it in less than 24 hours of gameplay, which is a bummer because there is literally an absurd amount of things to do in this game. From Korok seed hunting, to shrine questing, to farming materials for Kilton's shop, and even looking for a specific armor set, there is so much to do in this game. I stream this game over on Twitch, where I'm doing a 100% completion run on Master Mode. Within the first week, I decided to face Vaughn Meadow, the Divine Beast of Air, and as of the time of this recording, I'm at 29 days streamed and still have not fought another Divine Beast. There is that much content in this game. I can only imagine what Eiji Aonuma said when developing this game. He probably said, let's put so much content in this game, people will get sick of it. And their work goes to show, honestly. Majority of the fans love and adore this game, and rightfully so. I can only imagine the amount of time, patience, and heart that went into making this game. On December 7th, 2017, the Game of the Year awards were held. Many games were up for the title, most notably PlayerUnknown's Battleground, Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, and Mario Odyssey. Now, every one of those games had a wonderful shot at nabbing the title, but the general consensus was that PUBG was going to win due to the monumental success the game had that year, both on console and PC. You can't deny that in 2017, the game did very well. Now let's not talk about PUBG in 2018 though. Yeah, I'll pass. After an amazing orchestral performance of each game, the moment was upon us. Which game was going to win Game of the Year in 2017?
Celebration of truly great games this year, but there can only be one Game of the Year. So one last time, I'd like to recap the 5 nominees. Horizon Zero Dawn from Guerrilla Games. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild from Nintendo. Persona 5 from Atlas. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds from PUBG Corp. And Super Mario Odyssey, also from Nintendo. And now I'm happy to announce The winner for Game of the Year is selected by 51 global media and influencer outlets and the fans. And this year, the Game of the Year goes to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
This is Nintendo's first Game of the Year win at the Game Awards. Tonight, Breath of the Wild also won for Best Action Adventure Game and Best Game Direction.
As I watched IG Aonuma walk up on stage in Link's notorious Breath of the Wild tunic, I couldn't help but cry. This was such a legendary moment not only for Aonuma, but for Nintendo and fans of the franchise worldwide. This was Nintendo's first Game of the Year award, and Breath of the Wild deserved it. Not only did they win Game of the Year though, but they also won Best Action Adventure Game and Best Game Direction. 3 monumentous awards in a single night. Now that's saying something. And to top it off, yeah, they weren't done yet. Nintendo released DLC number 2, The Champion's Ballad, that same night, which was freaking incredible, and I cried like a little girl.
Wait, what is that? That comes out tonight! It comes out fucking tonight! Oh my god.
I wouldn't have considered Breath of the Wild to be an underdog, but when majority of the people on Twitter predicted PUBG to win, it was just really great to see my favorite game that year win. It was a remarkable and amazing night for Nintendo, and I couldn't be more proud. We're now going to swap over to my personal and biased opinions of this game. By now, I'm sure you know this, but let me reiterate it one more time. I love this game. Thank you and goodbye. Alright, but honestly, I'm going to talk about many of the things I previously talked about just with my opinions. And believe it or not, there actually is some criticism that I do have. Not every game is flawless, and even I have to admit that. While I love and praise the weapon durability system, I do have to admit that it is flawed. Many people were frustrated, myself included, that certain weapons would be destroyed with time and unobtainable afterwards. My favorite weapon type in the entire game are spears. I love using spears. They are some of the most fun and rewarding weapons to use, especially in early game when you have a low amount of hearts. Spears give you both a longer reach to hit enemies, and because of that, you have a less possibility of taking damage. Dodging and attacking an enemy in slow motion with a spear is so enjoyable also. Link slows down time and seamlessly attacks with like 1,000 flurries in a second. And can we talk about the charge up spin attack with 3 full stamina bars and Urbosa's Fury, striking the enemy with what seems like 48,000 hits, and then plowing them with a lightning strike that ultimately nukes, destroys, and wipes the creature off the face of Hyrule? It is so rewarding! Ah! My favorite spear type in the game in general are the Zora spears, most notably Mipha's spear. They're so beautiful and gorgeous, and the rubies in the weapon make them have an almost elegant and pristine, yet fierce and lethal look. But because of the weapon durability system, I never used Mipha's spear, because I didn't want it to break. In my first playthrough, it just sat in my inventory with no use at all, literally taking up an inventory space because of an attachment I made. There should have been a way for the player to get said items again in different ways. Either make it so that the weapon could be purchased again, or make it so that you could fortify and upgrade the weapon again once it gets low on durability. Or how about even going through some long and tedious quest to get some sort of goddess enchantment that makes the weapon unbreakable? At least that way, players would have to grind to save what they wanted, and Nintendo's idea of a weapon system wasn't gone to waste. That could have been awesome! Now I know the Master Sword is the only weapon in the game that doesn't break, but it's on a cooldown, which I feel takes power away from the character. The Master Sword is supposed to be this powerful and iconic weapon meant to defeat evil forever, and unfortunately, I feel like Breath of the Wild didn't deliver on that part. After an entire awesome journey from first finding the Lost Woods to reaching the Korok Forest and then getting enough hearts to get the actual sword, it just feels like almost the journey wasn't even worth it. I just wish Nintendo made it so that the sword wasn't on a cooldown. But no, there is unfortunately nothing like that in the game. Instead, we're stuck with a weapon system that is honestly very cool, but ultimately very flawed. Shrines were a wonderful way of giving the player what they wanted in terms of puzzles and adventure. Personally, I loved shrine hunting. They were so rewarding. From finishing a puzzle that took 20 minutes to figure out to the awesome tests of strength, and even the free shrines just made the game feel awesome. There was a shrine over in the Tabantha region I remember spending like 30 minutes trying to find, only to realize it was underground, only to be found by moving a giant metal plate blocking the entrance. Now, not all shrines were that awesome, however. Yes, the Dueling Peak shrines are the worst in the entire game. Stupid even! I spent so many hours trying to figure these shrines out. On my first playthrough, I refused to look it up because I was so determined to get these shrines done on my own. Unfortunately, after like a day of no luck, I just gave up. And eventually it took weeks later for me to finally cave in and look it up. Feels bad, man. But besides these two, I honestly enjoyed the rest. They added a nice level of challenge and reward. Another way Nintendo changed the core components of a Zelda game was by, for the first time in the franchise, added full voice acting. The voice acting in this game was rich and powerful. I think every single voice actor nailed their character. My personal favorite, Sean Chiplock, the English voice actor of Revali, did such a superb job. Revali is my favorite character in the entire game. I love how sassy and cocky and brave he is. He even admits how powerful Link is when Link defeats the Windblight Ganon in Va Meadow. Such a wonderful character brought even more to life because of voice acting.
Link made his way to this divine beast and accomplished something that even I could not. Guess I was wrong about how lucky he would be.
Can we also talk about the voice actress for Princess Zelda? Patricia Somerset, sweetie, you did an amazing job and brought the character even more to life. Thank you so much for a wonderful performance. Thank you to all the voice actors for amazing performances. You guys killed it. I personally have not played through all of DLC 2 because I'm waiting to stream it, but from what I hear, all of the champions, Mipha in specific, have wonderful stories, and the DLC adds even more background to the characters. I'm so excited and cannot wait to play through it.
It seems that my role is unfinished. There is still something I must do.
I spent a long time thinking about this, but if you were to ask me, Azul, what's your most favorite thing about this game? I think I'd have to say it's difficult to answer. Everything is fresh, everything is revitalized, and everything is full of life again. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's such a wonderful take on a franchise I've been playing since I was 5 years old. I remember playing Ocarina of Time on my cousin's Nintendo 64 years ago and loving the adventure. The tale of a young boy and his journey to become a hero made me want to make a story of my own, and I will always treasure those memories and feelings. The last Zelda game I really played was Twilight Princess, and that came out over a decade ago. I love the game, and the final boss fight against Ganon will forever be my most favorite boss fight in any video game. See, Twilight Princess was my favorite Zelda, and I thought nothing would ever overcome it. Then Breath of the Wild came out of nowhere and blew my freaking mind! It was quite literally one of the best games I have ever played. It was so fresh from all of the other games in the market. From the FPS to the MMOs to even the single-player games, personally, nothing reaches the same level Breath of the Wild has. It revitalized my love for the series in a way I never thought possible. One of my favorite moments was along a quest to get the sand boots. I was sent to climb atop of a mountain in Gerudo to fetch something. Well, on the snowy peak, I found a literal giant sword with nothing else around it. No statue, no corpse, nothing. I spent forever wandering, imagining, and trying to figure out where the sword came from or how it even got here. Eventually, a quest does come from it and leads to the answer, but still, that initial discovery was so powerful for me. Now, I'm going to take a second and talk about something real quick. The audio you're hearing now is actually post-recorded pretty much after the video has been done. The reason I'm saying this is because I made this review with the thought of having seen almost everything in this game. I have magical moments and memories tucked away in my brain, and I thought I had seen it all. Well, while recording gameplay for the Sand Boots, I stumbled across something. See, the legendary dragon Farosh is quite common to see roaming around Hyrule. After you see her the first time, you see her all the time. Well, I hadn't seen her yet in this save file, and I was curious as to how or why I hadn't seen her yet. Well, in an attempt of recording gameplay for the Sand Boots for this review, my first time seeing Farosh was in the mountains of the Gerudo Highlands. I was literally awed and just wowed. The fact that she decided to show herself in a place that's already one of my favorite memories is just amazing. I literally made another memory while recording gameplay for this review. I know it's silly and probably didn't need to be included, but I just wanted to add this in here so I could share this with you all. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue with the review. My favorite area in the entire game is the Rito Village in the Tabantha region. It is so beautiful, warm in the days and cold at nights. The mountainous region urges for mystery and exploration. It's probably the reason why Vah Meadow is my favorite divine beast. My favorite shrine in the entire game is here, favorite armor set, it's the place I go to spend my spirit orbs. I've arguably spent the most time in the game here. The music as well is absolutely amazing. I mean, just listen. The soundtrack for Rito Village is actually a remix of Wind Waker's Dragon Roost Island, and it's my second favorite track in the entire game, right behind the first song you heard in this video. And while we're on the topic of music, the music in this game is absolutely stupendously incredible. I've actually read some critics of people stating that the music was lacking in this game compared to previous titles, which honestly, I think they're just wrong. I mean, just look at the title of this game. Breath of the Wild. Wild is such a key component for this game. You can roam wild and do whatever the hell you want with no rush at all from the NPCs or time constraints. You can literally go at whatever pace you want to. And because wild is such a key feature for this game, the music accents it perfectly. See, in Twilight Princess, one of my most favorite tracks is the night theme for Hyrule Field. It works well with the atmosphere because the game is overall relatively dark and somber, and the music accents it perfectly. Breath of the Wild, however, wouldn't work with that sound. Breath of the Wild isn't dark or somber, it's freeing and uplifting. The Hyrule Field theme we got effortlessly shows how quiet yet loud the world is. It makes this game even more magical. A perfect balance. You almost quite literally breathe it in. I've spent hours just standing atop some cliff in the middle of the Hebra region, or the Tabantha region, or even Akala, just staring at the sunset, listening to the music. It has a perfect way of almost just making you stop in your tracks to absorb the world and everything it has to offer around you. This game ultimately gave me life. Some of my best moments in the past few years have been because of this game. I felt free in an otherwise trapped and suffocating world. Near the end of March 2017, one of my friends and I decided to go to 2 back-to-back concerts. The first one was in Chicago, and then the next day we drove to St. Louis. They were heavy metal concerts, so obviously we were in a room jam-packed with people screaming our hearts out, and it ultimately led to me getting extremely sick. And when I say sick, I meant bedridden. My head was pounding 24/7. I had tissues in both my nostrils for days, strep throat, and much, much more. It was the common head cold, only 4 times as worse. Because I was so sick and nearly bedridden, I was forced to call off work for 2 days in a row. I believe it was a Monday and a Tuesday I called off, but I know that Wednesday I was normally scheduled off. So it seemed like I had 3 days off, when in reality I was bedridden and extremely miserable. Now the reason I bring this up is because during those 3 days when I was sick, all I did was sleep, go to the bathroom, and play Breath of the Wild. I would lay in bed and play with the Switch undocked, and when the battery got low, I would get up, put the Switch back in its dock, and play at my desk until the moment the battery was fully charged. I did this for 3 days. So, obviously, I spent a lot of time playing and soaking in this game fully. On that Wednesday, my scheduled day off, I started to feel ever so slightly better. If 100% is the equivalent of not sick, then I was at a solid 24%. Believe it or not, but that was the best I had felt in 3 days. But because I was sick for 3 days, I had started to grow an appetite. However, I didn't have much food in my apartment. Now, the place I worked at was literally 5 minutes away from me. I used to work at a grocery store, and I used to walk to work. It was that close. It was honestly really cool. I didn't want to, but my stomach convinced me otherwise to get dressed and leave to get food. I didn't know it at the time, but it had just snowed like 5 inches the night before, so I had no clue at all. And the moment I walked outside, I realized that jeans and Vans probably weren't the best idea. But I said screw it and trekked on. I walked through the snow for longer than 5 minutes, with an absurd amount getting in both my socks and shoes, but I was determined to get some food. I got to work and the first thing I bought was a 32 count of Fat Boy ice cream sandwiches and hot wings. I'd been craving both for days and my tummy was gonna get what it wanted, okay? I paid for my food, trekked back home through the snow once more, and put my wings in the oven. I was so famished and starved that I ate 6 ice cream sandwiches before the wings were even done. I know the story seems odd, but it's honestly one of my favorite memories I have of the game. Zelda to me has always been about the journey, the stories, and the memories. I always wanted to be a hero and make stories of my own, and I did just that. Breath of the Wild has done more for me than most people will ever understand, but I hope that this review has perhaps brought some insight about this game and showed you things you previously didn't know. If you haven't yet, I would honestly recommend picking this game up and never letting it down. Explore, traverse the land, and listen to the world around you, because it's beautiful, magical, and has a lot to say. You have no idea what I would give to play through this game blind and unaware once more. If anyone at Nintendo ever happens to watch this video, just know that I can't thank you guys enough for the wonderful times I've had playing this game. The literal hundreds and eventually thousands of hours I'll put into this game and into this franchise. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And to you, the viewer watching this video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this review. I know I rambled on for what seemed like an hour and it was just basically a love letter for the game, but I hope I brought something different to the table and perhaps convinced you to play this game if you haven't already. I hope I succeeded. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching this review of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, a year and a half after its release.